including Baghdad, in Fars, Fez, in Quds, in Damascus, in Naisabur, in Cairo, and so on. All this using Awqaf resources and as Awqaf. And there were also specialized universities established, such as the Al-Qarawiyin University, Al-Azhar University, and Nizamiya University, so on and so on. All these were actually Awqaf. So you can see that we can use Awqaf to change the subject of the formula when it comes to the issue of Muslim education, whether it is secondary schools or universities or specialized colleges. For example, we have this challenge of deficiency when it comes to the issue of manpower in the health sector. I remember reading the statistics about 7 years or so that shows that every year in Nigeria, about 5,000 nurses are produced. But every year, about 5,000 nurses leave the country for greener pasture. So it means we are not. I hope it's clear. It means we are not. And every year, how many of them retire? So it means it provides us with an opportunity to now use Awqaf, to use Waqf to establish more colleges of nursing, so that we will be able to produce more Muslim nurses. And if we have enough for our own local use, then we actually expose, if I use this term, Japa, isn't it? Yeah. So that we will now, Waqf will now give us advantage. And very importantly, I was discussing with somebody and he told me that when it comes to the international community, whenever they are coming up to Nigeria with any intervention, health intervention, they don't include Gombe State in most cases, except if it is a general thing. But if it is a specialty, the reason, because they say if you go to America and England and the UK, what you will find is that there are so many nurses from Gombe State, so many of them that they don't think Gombe needs any intervention in this area. But these people are from where? From southern Gombe. In other words, they are non-Muslim nurses. So it's like they have carved for themselves a niche in this regard. Now we can use Waqf for this specialized, manpower development in very different areas, and especially these crucial developmental areas like education and the health sector. Waqf was used for printing books, for building libraries and laboratories, and for funding researches. Now, Muslims, when it comes to the issue of research, especially in Nigeria, we don't talk about us. The whole world of research doesn't know us because we don't have resources for research. And that's why a statement by one of the scholars of Waqf, he says, in the Ottoman Empire, due to the marvelous development that was recorded in the area of Waqf, a person can be born in a house belonging to a Waqf, sleep in a cradle provided by that Waqf, be educated in the school of the Waqf, and read the books provided by the Waqf. He will become a teacher in the Waqf school, earn a Waqf finance salary, and at this and his death, he will be placed in a Waqf provided coffin for burial in a Waqf cemetery. So the entire life is built on Waqf, because there wasn't anything in the society that there was no Waqf that was taken care of. This is how Waqf developed, and this is what I want AL-HABIBIYYAH to do for Waqf in Nigeria.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Waqf.
The same thing as the health sector, even though I talked about the educational aspect of the health sector. If you look at the Waqf sector historically, the educational sector, Waqf, historically, health was one of the greatest intervention, beneficiaries of Waqf. In fact, what we know is that the health and Waqf and educational sectors were the most important areas where Waqf was made. Most Waqf were in health and education. And this is because even today in development discourse, you go and read the books of economic development. What they tell you is that health and education, as far as development is concerned, they are not only the means to development, they are development. That's what scholars of development say. If you have education and you have proper health care, then you are developed. And Muslims understood this much earlier, and therefore they didn't wait for government to provide ministries for education or ministry for healthcare. They had their own private or worker-based ministries. Everything about education was work. Everything about health was work. And that was therefore what you will see. That's what you will see in Syria, in Turkey, in Egypt, and other Muslim countries. Of course, some of these examples were given yesterday. This thing is causing problem.
It has ceased.
Yeah.
It has still begun.
Yeah. And because of and through work we can solve the problem of electricity in Nigeria. So we don't need to be having problem while making presentations, isn't it? Yeah. So you will have power work, isn't it? Oh, yeah, they need work intervention. We can finance solar energy, isn't it? Yeah, through our government investment. Then we solve that problem. Because infrastructure was essentially established. We have just seen it that the Muslim nations relied on work for all infrastructure. Ya salam. Okay. Then now, please tell them to stop interfering with this line.
Even them, I know they are suffering outside there. Because they have to be switching between generator and NEPA.
So waiting, making arrangement with me. It's just for the way. Please for places like this, if they can provide small solar solutions. It's still not working, I don't know. Where are the experts? Come and help out. Let me try something. Okay, she can. I think you can. It can. Hopefully, it will not work now. It will now work. Okay, alhamdulillah. So we're still talking about the health sector. As early as the 4th Hijri century, that was about just not less than 400 years in Islamic history. Hospitals were established for children, for the treatment of children. So there were specialized, hospitals for the treatment of children in Istanbul, in Turkey. In Spain, Waqf-based hospital facilities were established for Muslims and non-Muslims together. So there was no discrimination. So just as a non-Muslim can make a waqf, when a Muslim makes a waqf, it's not only restricted for Muslim benefit. You can do awqaf for the benefit of Muslims and non-Muslims. And this has been understood by Muslims as early as. The Khalif al-Walid bin Abdul Malik built a hospital and appointed doctors and paid them to care for the sick and for quarantine of lepers. And so you can see this thing is something that was done in Muslim history. Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, the great Salahuddin in Egypt, funded a large hospital in Cairo with 3 wards, 1 for men, 1 for women, and 1 for the insane. So we have specialized hospitals, the psychiatric hospitals, of course. So what are we expected to do when we want to entrench a Waqf system? What are the things they are doing in terms of interventions in the health sector? Setting patients' bills, training health workers, so they do work for training health workers, manpower development, for the payment of salaries, awqaf for the payment of salaries of health care staff, construction of hospitals. Alhamdulillah, in Nigeria, there are some clinics that are Waqf based, especially in the north, and I know a few also in the south. Salaries, equipment, research, and so on. All these are done have been financed from the Awqaf. So what are the current contemporary socio-economic roles of Waqf? If we want to entrench a Waqf system, we need to invest in Waqf education. And I think for the agenda of AL-HABIBIYYAH, this is where it will all start. It's Waqf education. Waqf literacy, if you like it. We need to do a lot in creating massive Waqf education, understanding the principles, the jurisprudence of Waqf, the history of Waqf, the dimensions of Waqf, isn't it? And the socio-economic role of Waqf. Aspects of management, we'll talk about the 7 important aspects that we need to look at when it comes to entrenching Waqf, inshallah. Massive mobilization of Waqf resources. In many parts of the Muslim world now, the major challenge they are talking about is, putting their own works to function, to use. They have so many Awqaf resources, massive land, Waqf land, but they are thinking of how to just make them productive. In Nigeria, even though there are Awqaf, but our primary thing is actually to create the Waqf properties, to generate, to mobilize resources first, because Waqf in this regard cannot be compared to what other parts of the world are. So we need to primarily focus on this area also. Then redefining philanthropic priorities. In our researches about Waqf in Nigeria, what we have found is that most people, when you mention Waqf, of course that means the popular term which is Sadaqah Jariyah, the moment you mention it, what people think about is masjid, mosque, establishing mosques, isn't it? I have done a series of writings and I talked about prioritizing empowerment of worshippers instead of places of worship, in more and more places of worship. Of course, where there is no mosque, it's a priority to establish mosque. But then people build 1, 2, 3, 5 mosques, and then by the time he finishes the second, those for whom he built the first will have come to him for maintenance fees. We need to repair this and that. What if we do any investment Waqf for the maintenance of a direct Waqf? I hope you understand this. We do investment Waqf for the maintenance of a direct Waqf that we have. We build a masjid, but as part of our own plan for the masjid, we have a very big investment plan that will take proper care of maintenance of the mosque, including the salaries of the imam and all other workers in the masjid, and some reserves, isn't it? In case of in case of incacities. This is Nigerian English. I don't know whether it's accepted globally. For sure. So the issue of prioritizing empowerment in Waqf. Our experience, is this the first time I'm mentioning our experience? So it's not about Zakah Waqf in Gombe. Our experience has shown that with little resources, you will make a lot of impact in our society, so long as you have good model of empowerment. You live in Abuja here. You may not understand sometimes why somebody will tell you that with 10,000 naira, you can change the entire life of a family. People cannot understand that. I don't mean you give them 10,000 naira to eat today. I was clear. But then you do a productive intervention by giving them some training. And that training doesn't necessarily mean a very formal, long-term training. No, they need just to be sat down and to be educated in 10 to 15, 30 minutes about this is how life is, and these are the ways you can change your life, and why it is important for you to stop thinking about today and begin to think about your next 5 years. And then how you can turn this 10,000 naira that I am giving you now, or 20,000 naira that we are giving you now, to, if it is 10,000, how can you turn it to 11,000 in the next 1 month, to 13,000 in the next 2 months, to 20,000 in the next 6 months. I hope it's clear. We give them basic formulas of economics, and it works. And you show them the importance of taking back their children to school. And many of them, the poorest of the poor, they don't go to school. Their children don't go to school. Now, so we can use our resources to change this completely. One of the projects we started recently is, we call it GSEP, Girl Child Empowerment Program. We just looked after we did what we call Women Empowerment Program for about 5 years. And we have seen the impact. But we said, let's try the younger ones. Let's catch them young. Because these are people who have no bills, isn't it? Who don't need to buy this and that. But who are going to their own, building their families in the next 5, 7, 8 years. 13 to 18 years. Train them in skills, give them this basic knowledge that you can be like Dangote. You can be the next Dangote, for example. If you have Dangote, you, lady, you can be the next Ergote, isn't it? You can be the Ergote if it's Dangote, isn't it? Yeah, you can do this, and you can be like Khadija alayhi salam, who was the employer of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you give them that hope, that confidence, and how, and then you train them in different skills: tailoring, beads making, wire work, leather work. And last month in Ramadan, come and see how a girl that was trained for 3 weeks before Ramadan was able to generate 70,000 naira in Ramadan. A lady whose father could not generate 10,000 naira in a month, and mother doesn't work for something that answers her living. So we can use our CAF resources to do this, and so on and so forth. So we need to redefine our own philanthropic, priorities. How do we make interventions? We collect zakat, we collect resources and just give to people, and we snap pictures and distribute and say Allahu Akbar. No, go for empowerment. Then the issue of professionalizing Waqf management. I'm sure my brother has talked about this yesterday. So to conclude this round of presentation, the Waqf institution, according to the World Bank, is the most flexible and powerful instrument that can be effectively used to address the concerns raised by the SDGs. We're talking about SDGs, yes. And the United Nations tells us that the Waqf is capable of addressing the humanitarian crisis in the Muslim world. And I conclude by this statement that for most countries in South and Southeast Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, in other words, in the Muslim world, the resources needed to alleviate poverty, for alleviating deprivation, could be made adequately if the potential of the institutions of Zakat and Waqf were realized, even if only in part. This is a statement from the leading organization, the World Bank. Thank you very much for listening for this session. Alhamdulillah.